Have you ever wished for an AI assistant which could help you interact with any website with just your voice and in real time and without the need to pay for any monthly subscription, just with a pay-as-you-go API service? Well, it's actually pretty easy. Just let me show you how. Some coding experience is going to be beneficial, but not strictly needed. So let's dive in. But first, let me just show it to you. Let's navigate to a Reddit comments page. And full disclosure, this app needs to be adapted to a specific website. And I chose Reddit comments page since that's really always a mystery to me. And also, this video segment will have no cuts whatsoever, so you can decide to know if that's real time enough for you. So let's say this post is a bit long, and I want to get a summary of it. So I can click on this button. How about you summarize this post for me?
The post expresses the author's first experience of existential dread regarding the potential dangers of AI, despite their belief in its benefits, and they seek reassurance and hope from the community.
Would you say the community gives him this reassurance?
Yes, the community offers various forms of reassurance, emphasizing collective support, potential benefits of AI, mindfulness practices, and the idea of contributing positively to the future.
Any examples of contributing positively?
An example of contributing positively is getting involved in AI ethics and governance to help guide the development of AI technologies in a beneficial direction.
So as you can see, that's real time. Totally. There's almost no lag between my questions and the answers. That's amazing, really. Let me show you how it works. Let me show you how to build it. Let's break it down first. At a higher level, in order to be able to interact with a website, you're gonna need a browser extension and a backend to support all the AI-related work. But here's gonna be the major steps. Step 1, speech to text. This step is surprisingly easy and it's completely free. Browsers provide speech to text service free of charge, and a browser extension can initiate it to return us a text of a free-form user question which a user would ask about a website, reading the data. So the same extension has full access to the website, and it can easily read and restructure, reformat, transform whatever data is in that website. So for example, in the Reddit comments page, that extension can grab the post, the comments, and structure them separately. Step 3, let's send it to the backend. Well, now we got both the user question and the website data. We can send it to the backend web server, which I implemented using Python Flask. Step 4, query the chatbot. Well, backend server can send both the website data and the user question to a chatbot via whatever API you choose. For this project, I use OpenAI, and while also pre-prompting it properly, so it would answer user questions in a proper manner, text to speech. Once we get a text response back from a chatbot, we can invoke another API to generate a voice for us. Again, I chose OpenAI just for simplicity, so we can just use one API key. Step 6, stream the audio. The backend server can now stream the data back to the extension, and which can then play the audio back to the user. And now that you have an overview of a process, let's dive into each step in detail and see how you can implement this on your own. Just before we do that, all code is in GitHub. Link will be in the description. And hopefully installation, infrastructure steps are easy to follow. Just make sure to use a virtual environment, but it's really up to you which one do you want to use. And if something's not working, just drop me a message. Step 1, speech to text. Just to note, I implemented this extension for Chrome, So many things are probably common and across other browsers. So if we open manifest.json, which is basically a config file for the extension, there's two parts, pop-up and a content script. So pop-up page, that's just one button with some styling and the logic implemented in pop-up.js. This is the speech-to-text code, and you can see it's really implemented by the browser's speech recognition model. We just configure it and start it, and wait for the transcript. That's it. Upon receiving the transcript, we can send a message to another part of the extension right here. There's also some error handling and icon manipulation, just to give a better user experience, not really that important. Step 2, reading the data. So let's jump into the content script. Remember, the message sent from the pop-up, that's being handled here. And the first thing we need to do is gather the data from the website. And it's this function call. So since we're dealing with a Reddit comments page, some pretty trivial querying. We grab the post right here and, well, the top-level comments using this query. We also limit it to 10 comments, just not to explode on bigger posts, but feel free to experiment here. And we return a JSON object. Keep in mind, if you want a different website, well, this is pretty much the function you need to change. Step 3, send it to the backend. Well, once we do that, we can call our backend server. Pay attention that we are passing session ID, which backend generates for us during the first call. So we can ask follow-up questions, since backend server will keep track of our message history. So there's three things we give to the backend: user question, post, and comments. Step 4, query the chatbot. Now let's jump into the backend, which is just one file, 100 lines long. Keep in mind, I created it to be as simple as possible, so all the config is in the source code and only one website and one API is supported, right? One thing I need to mention right away, we need a proper course config, and this is due to the fact that the original website we are coming from, well, that is not served from our backend. That's actually reddit.com, right? And which means that the extension, it's querying a different domain. And we kind of need to configure our web server to allow that right here. So all these lines might look daunting if you're not familiar with LangChain library, but it's really not that much. It just deals with small common problems you need to solve when using chatbots, really, like session management and message history. And you likely won't have to change anything here, except for the prompt, of course. Also, we could actually ditch LangChain altogether, which would mean we would need to write maybe 50, 60 additional lines of code to deal with session history and message history, right? So here's our template for a chatbot. This is the initial prompt with post and comments. Again, for a different website, you're most certainly going to change that. We also have the session store. If we reload the page, we'll get a new session, right? Which will then have its own message history, which also chains our model and prompt. And to tie this all together, just a helpful chatbot function, which will actually call an underlying API service. So what happens? This endpoint gets triggered with the parameters we send from an extension. Again, post, comments, and user question. Of course, we add the session ID, which the first time will be generated right here. And we are ready to query the chatbot. Step 5, text-to-speech. Now, after we got the response, let's convert it into audio. Now this is super simple. We're just using OpenAI's API for it. You can pick your own voice, just don't change the response format. That's going to be a bit sensitive. So this is actually a generational function generator, meaning it will return multiple times as audio is being generated, which will allow us to stream the audio. Now, slight sideline, there's also an ability to stream the chat response by changing this invoke to stream, okay? Which would then allow us to receive a streamed response, token by token. And it would also allow us to seamlessly stream large amounts of text as it's being generated. Since right now we're kind of synchronously waiting for all the text to be generated. But putting this all together and deciding when to invoke audio API, well, let's see, we could call it probably for separate sentences, but now there's a question, what to do with all the gaps between the sentences. That's going to get very complicated quite fast. So we're not doing this here. Now we have our stream generator function. We can pass it to the special Flasks function, stream with context, which deals with all the streaming, and it will send our audio back to the extension chunk by chunk. Step 6, stream the audio. Now let's get back to the extension, content.js, and we need to actually play the stream. Okay, so this part, it was probably 80% of the time I spent on this project. Yeah, it was driving me mad. I initially tried to do it manually using Web Audio API by decoding each chunk separately, and while trying all the different audio formats. And to allow that, I had to generate headers in the backend for each separate chunk, and so on. And it got pretty complicated, and audio would often come back, either very much sped up or distorted, or it would just crash, failing to decode. It was really a mess, and it got quite complicated. Luckily, I discovered the media source class, which made all the difference. So all we need to do is configure it and then read our audio from the backend, chunk by chunk, and then just add those chunks right here to the media sources buffer without doing any decoding or processing ourselves. That works with MP3, by the way, probably not with all the other audio formats. So just leave it at MP3. And that's it. Once you play the audio, you listen to it, you ask another question, and cycle goes on. You have it. All right, so now you can download the code, modify two places, website queries in the extension and the prompt in the backend code, and that's it. You have it working for any website you want, and you'll be able to chat about it with your AI assistant real time. Thank you for watching. See you next time.